Right now, somewhere, a brand new human being is screaming its lungs out at 3 in the morning, and the giant holding it has absolutely no idea what it wants. Think about how useless a newborn human actually is. It can't walk, it can't crawl, it can't roll over, hold up its own head, or do a single thing to keep itself alive. It has exactly one move: scream, and hope a bigger human fixes it. Now compare that to almost every other animal on Earth. A baby horse stands up within an hour of being born. A baby deer runs from wolves the same day. A baby human, meanwhile, will need about a year just to walk across a room, and another decade or two before it can be left alone. So here's the thing nobody stops to think about. Drop that same helpless, screaming, can't even lift its head baby into the prehistoric world. No doctors, no cribs, no walls, surrounded by things with claws, and by every rule of survival, it should be dead by morning. By the cold logic of nature, the human baby is a terrible idea. Too slow, too loud, too fragile, helpless for far too long. And yet, every single person watching this is living proof that somehow it worked. So how did ancient humans keep the most helpless baby in the animal kingdom alive, in a world actively trying to eat it? The answer is stranger and, honestly, more beautiful than you'd expect. It involves why we're born half-finished, a secret trick for silencing a baby, food passed mouth to mouth, and a hidden system so important we've spent the last century quietly dismantling it. Because you didn't survive your first year because you were tough. You survived because of them. Let's start with why you needed so much help in the first place. It starts with two things humans are weirdly proud of: big brains and walking on 2 legs. Both are superpowers. Together, they created a problem. Walking upright narrowed the human hips. Meanwhile, our brains and our heads kept getting bigger. A big head and a narrow opening is, to put it gently, a design conflict. Evolution's leading workaround, scientists think, was brutally simple. Ship the baby early. Get it out while the head is still small enough to make the trip, and let it finish developing on the outside. Which is why a human newborn is, basically, a fetus that ran out of room. Other mammals are born more or less ready to go. Human babies are born months before they're done. We finish cooking out here, in the open, instead of safely inside. You can actually feel the evidence on a newborn's head. There's a soft spot, a gap where the skull hasn't closed yet. That gap is there so the head can literally squeeze and flex on the way out. A baby's skull arrives unfinished on purpose. So that was the trade, a smaller head at birth in exchange for years of total helplessness. We got the big brains and we paid for them up front. And that bill came due in the worst possible setting. Picture being a mother 100,000 years ago, holding a creature that can't be put down, can't be quieted easily, and can't be left for a second, while you still somehow need to find food, walk for miles, and not get eaten. Which brings us to the most dangerous thing that fragile little baby could possibly do: make noise. A crying baby is loud, painfully, deliberately loud. In a modern apartment, that's just annoying. But in the open landscape our ancestors lived in, that sound carried for hundreds of meters, and it told every predator for miles exactly where to find the most vulnerable member of the group. And make no mistake, for most of our history, we were prey. There's a famous fossil of one of our small, ancient relatives whose skull still carries the puncture marks of an eagle's talons. Big cats hunted us. We were not the scary thing in the dark. We were the thing the scary thing was hunting. So this is a genuine evolutionary puzzle. If a loud baby gets the whole family eaten, Why on earth would human babies evolve to be some of the loudest, most relentless criers in the animal kingdom? Why didn't quiet, calm babies win? Here's the unsettling answer. The screaming is the strategy. A baby that can't move, can't feed itself, and can't defend itself has exactly one tool to force the world to keep it alive, and it is that scream. The babies who cried loudest got fed first, picked up fastest, and ignored least. Crying didn't get them eaten. On average, crying kept them alive. The quiet, undemanding babies? We don't descend from many of those. Your most annoying newborn habit is quite literally an ancient survival system. But it left our ancestors with a problem to solve. How do you carry a noisy, helpless baby everywhere you go and keep it quiet enough not to die? The first answer was simple and genius. Never put it down. Some of the oldest tools we can imagine humans making weren't weapons or pots. They were slings. A loop of hide or woven plant fiber that strapped the baby to the body, freeing a mother's hands to work, gather, and keep moving with the group. The baby went where she went, all day, every day. And here's a detail that's almost magical. Scientists have measured what happens when you pick up a crying infant and walk with it. Within seconds, the baby goes quiet. Its body relaxes. Its heart rate actually slows down. It's called the transport response, and it's not learned. It's wired in, the same instinct that makes a kitten go limp when its mother carries it by the scruff. Think about what that means. A baby being carried by a moving adult is a baby evolved to stay silent and still. Because for our ancestors, a quiet, carried baby was a baby that didn't get the family killed. The instinct that soothes a fussy newborn on a midnight car ride today is the same instinct that kept it alive on the savannah. But carrying solved only half the problem, because no matter how clever the sling, no matter how quiet the baby, one mother, on her own, simply could not do it. And this is where the real secret begins. Do the math on a single ancient mother. A human baby needs to be fed constantly, carried constantly, and watched every second. It can't be left alone, ever. But the mother also has to eat, a lot, to make milk. She has to gather food, which means walking for miles. A mother trying to do all of that alone with a helpless infant in a dangerous world simply runs out of hours, energy, and luck. It doesn't work. So humans did something almost no other great ape does. We shared the baby. An ape mother guards her infant fiercely and barely lets anyone else touch it. Human mothers did the opposite. They handed the baby around to grandmothers, aunts, sisters, older children, trusted friends. The whole group helped carry, soothe, watch, and even feed someone else's child. Anthropologist Blaffer Hrdy gave this a name: cooperative breeding. Her argument is that humans never raised children as isolated mothers. We evolved as a species that raises babies in teams, with a whole circle of alloparents, other carers, sharing the load. According to this idea, the helpless human baby didn't survive despite needing so much care. It survived because that overwhelming need forced humans to cooperate in the first place. And it goes deeper than babysitting. Some researchers think this is why human babies are so heartbreakingly cute, so quick to smile, so good at locking eyes with you. A baby that has to win over a whole group, not just its mother, has every reason to evolve into a tiny charm machine. That gummy little smile may be one of the oldest survival tools we have. It's not just affection, it's recruitment. Now meet the most underrated hero in this whole story, the grandmother. Here's something genuinely strange about humans. In almost every other species, a female lives only about as long as she can have babies. Humans break that rule. Human women routinely live for decades after they can no longer reproduce. And from an evolutionary standpoint, that's bizarre. Why keep a body running long after it can't pass on its genes? One leading answer is called the grandmother hypothesis, championed by anthropologist Kristen Hawkes, who studied the Hadza people of Tanzania, modern hunter-gatherers whose lives offer a window into our past. She noticed the older women were often the hardest workers in camp, digging up tubers and feeding their grandchildren. And here's the payoff. A grandmother who feeds her grandchildren frees up their mother to have the next baby sooner, and helps more of those children survive. In other words, grandmothers may be the reason humans can raise so many helpless children at once. Menopause might not be a flaw, it might be a feature. Nature reassigning a woman from making babies to keeping the existing ones alive. That old saying, "It takes a village to raise a child," was never a sweet motivational poster. For ancient humans, it was a literal description of how the species survived. No village, no baby. No baby, no us. The teamwork even extended to the dinner table, if you can call it that. A baby with no teeth can't chew tough roots or meat. So across countless cultures, adults did something that sounds shocking now, but kept babies fed for millions of meals. They chewed the food themselves, then passed the soft, mashed result straight into the baby's mouth. It's called premastication. Some researchers even suspect that this mouth-to-mouth feeding is one of the origins of the human kiss. The next time you find a kiss romantic, just remember it may have started as lunch. And at night, the most dangerous time of all, the group became a fortress. Fire kept predators back. Adults slept in shifts, someone always half awake. The babies, the most precious and most vulnerable members of the whole group, were kept in the middle, surrounded by bodies, warmth, and watchful eyes. Survival wasn't a mother and her child against the world. It was a wall of people, refusing to let the smallest one go. Now, it would be easy to end on a warm, cozy picture of the loving ancient village. But that wouldn't be honest, and this part matters. Because for all that care, all that cooperation, the brutal truth is that an enormous number of babies still didn't make it. The numbers are sobering. By many estimates of ancient and hunter-gatherer life, somewhere around a quarter of babies died before their first birthday, and as many as half didn't survive to grow up. Disease, accident, hunger, cold, infection. For most of human history, burying a child wasn't a rare tragedy. It was an expected part of being a parent. So the village wasn't magic. It was the best system fragile, clever, deeply caring people could build with almost nothing. And it still lost, again and again. The love was real. So was the loss. Both things are true at once, and it would be a disservice to pretend otherwise. And this is where we can finally clear up something you've probably heard your whole life. The idea that ancient humans all just dropped dead around the age of 30. It's one of the most repeated facts about the past, and it's deeply misleading. Here's the trick hiding inside it. When you hear average life expectancy was 30, that number isn't telling you when adults died. It's being dragged down by all those babies and young children who died early. If half your people die before age 5, the math spits out a low average, even if the people who survive childhood go on to live for decades. Because they did. Studies of hunter-gatherer societies show that someone who made it through those deadly early years had a very good chance of reaching their 60s, 70s, even beyond. Ancient humans weren't a species of people who all died young. They were a species where the dangerous part was being small, and if you survived being a baby, you could grow genuinely old. The 30-year-old average wasn't a death sentence for adults. It was a monument to how many children the village couldn't save. Now come back to today. To that exhausted parent at 3 a.m. we started with. Look closely at the room. There's the baby, just as helpless as it has always been. The same useless, screaming, beloved little creature from 100,000 years ago. The baby hasn't changed at all. But look at what's missing. The grandmother who'd take the baby for an hour isn't in the room. The aunts, the cousins, the older kids, the neighbors, the whole circle of hands that used to pass the baby around. Gone. We kept the helpless baby. We kept its endless needs. And then, slowly, over a few short generations, we quietly took away the village that was designed to carry it. So when a modern parent feels like they're drowning, like raising 1 or 2 kids is somehow impossibly hard, even with cars and washing machines and food that appears at the door, they are not weak and they are not failing. They are doing, almost completely alone, a job that nature built an entire group to share. The exhaustion isn't a personal flaw. It's the sound of 40 missing pairs of hands. Because here's the truth underneath all of it. You are not alive because one person loved you enough. You are alive because for thousands of generations, in the cold and the dark and the danger, group after group of people picked up a screaming, fragile, completely useless little bundle and refused to put it down. They passed it from hand to hand, mouth to mouth, mother to grandmother to stranger, all the way down an unbroken chain that ends today in you. The helpless human baby was never supposed to make it on its own. It never did. It survived the only way it ever could, by being loved and carried by more people than it would ever remember. We are, every one of us, the result of the oldest team effort on Earth. So if you've got people who help you carry the weight, hold on to them. And if you're carrying it mostly alone right now, it was never meant to be carried alone. That isn't weakness. That's just very, very old. New episode every week. Subscribe so you don't miss it.